Monday, and precisely at this time, they're always right in front of my condo. So just uncanny.
Welcome to M2Techcast, a live internet radio show offering the latest news and interviews with the people driving business, technology, and politics in Michigan. Now, your hosts, Matt Roush and Mike Brennan.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another edition of the M2Techcast on a Monday afternoon. It is 60 degrees and sunny and beautiful out the window here in Dearborn. Our first guest, Gary Baker, though, is pursuing a lifelong dream of a new business that he says he calls a half-time job, but it's a full-time passion. So Gary operated the first non-government internet service provider in Michigan way back when, and was always right into the Michigan tech scene as far as you could go. So Gary, tell us what you're up to now.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Good to talk to you. Hey, Mike, good to see you.
You too,
Although
Gary.
we see Mike every week on our Internet Advisor show, we're still doing our Internet Advisor show, a radio show on WJR 760 AM in Detroit, one of the 12 original superstations in the country. So we have a big broadcast footprint, but of course, everything is on the internet now as well. We're in our 23rd year, and Mike joins us every week to give us a little bit of an idea of what the technology news is around the great state of Michigan.
And the new wrinkle, too, is just started a few weeks ago. You're actually doing Zoom so people can see the other host. They see me regularly, but to be able to see you and Cal and Ed and of course, you probably picked up on the voice we had coming in. We still use Foster's intro.
That's
We
right.
haven't had the heart to change it because it's so good. But of course, Foster is the one who started the Internet Advisor with you 25 years ago?
23 years now.
23
Yep.
years ago. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be 23 years in February.
All right.
Yeah, we've been doing the show for a long time. I gave up my actually day job finally back the first of the year, and within less than 2 weeks, I had 2 half-time jobs. So I need to. I am the CIO for IPC, which is International Trade Association serving the electronics manufacturing industry. And then I also am the CTO, Chief Technology Officer, for a little fintech called Fin Results. The good thing is I can do both of those remote from the boat, along with the radio show. So everybody thinks I must be in the studio in WJR. I'm not. I'm remote from the boat, as I am today here.
Remote from the boat. I like that. Now, Matt wants to go remote from Traverse City as soon as possible when he retires, right, Matt?
That's the plan, yeah. And so mine would be a pontoon boat on some little lake someplace.
Yeah, tell a little bit about Shared Adventure. I've been on the previous Shared Adventure. I haven't been on your new one. New one's even bigger, right?
Yeah, we're a Shared Adventure 2. We're in the same place in Fort Lauderdale, Bahia Mar Marina, which is right here on the strip. So I can actually look out on the ocean right from here, as a matter of fact, since I'm sitting in the stern cockpit of the boat. It's a 51-foot power catamaran. It's got 4 cabins, each with their own head and shower. I got a crew quarters with 2 bunks and another head and shower. Of course, those are not palatial spaces, but nice big stern cockpit. We can sit 12 people around. There's a bow cockpit, 2 little tables up there, sit about 6 people. Upstairs on the fly bridge, which is where the helm is, where we drive. We have another big table, sit 10 to 12 people up there, grill, all sorts of things. Got a dinghy, a wave runner, 2 kayaks, 2 stand-up paddle boards,
Scuba gear.
scuba gear.
Yeah.
Even yoga mats, if you want to do yoga on the bow of the boat in the evening.
That sounds great. I know I talked to you about doing
That
a
would be
trip to
the
the
diving dog position, right? So
Yeah,
okay.
right. Diving dog. Yes. I talked to you about taking a trip to the Bahamas sometime with some guests, and you even go as far as that, right?
That's right. Yeah, actually, from here, the Bahamas are only 48 miles. In a little over a week, we're going to be heading down to Key West for 3 weeks.
Oh,
And that's about 150 miles from here. Not too far still, but nice little, we'll do some island hopping along the way, going all the way down and back. And we take charters, right? So my goal is, everywhere I go, I want to share the adventure. The whole idea, the whole concept that we have around shared adventure is we believe everyone should have a friend with a boat.
ah,
We want to be that friend.
I
Right?
like that. I like that. Is it on your business
Yeah,
card?
that's
too?
my
It
favorite
is.
kind of boat is the friends boat.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, if you're not a friend when you get on, you'll be a friend when you get off.
Ah, I
And
see it.
that's the goal. And we just have a lot of fun, heading out, going different places. Because I can work remote from the boat. Doesn't matter if the boat's here in Fort Lauderdale or in Key West or over in Bimini. Only 48 miles. As soon as they open up the Bahamas, which it looks like they're going to be doing more and more now, we'll be able to get back to going to the Bahamas. Beautiful water down there.
Yeah.
And you're only, with a small group of people. So it's not like going on a big cruise ship and potentially being exposed to a lot of different people. Here we let you help drive, communicate, navigate. We tell everybody, they really need to have a job when they come on board. So we've got a few people that looked at the beanbag chairs out on the bow of the boat, and they say, is anybody holding those down so they don't fly away? And they said, no, not yet. And he goes, that's my job. I'll take that one.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
whatever it takes.
being a scuba diver, I've always wanted to dive the Bimini Road because it's not really, I don't like the 90-foot dives. It's not for me, but 30 or 40 feet I can handle. So I'd like to try that sometime.
There's a beautiful dive, a shipwreck. It's about 20 feet of water. Actually, it sticks up above water and then goes down to about 20 feet to the floor. It's a great, great dive out in Bimini, called Sapoa. And take a lot of people out there, and everybody has fun with it. And lots of conch shells around, and great big huge propeller lying now horizontal on the floor of the ocean.
I know that when you're in the port, you can use Wi-Fi, but when you go out over the water and you're away from Wi-Fi, do you use satellite or what do you use?
Yeah, so right now there's about a 25-mile stretch going across the Gulf Stream where we can't get internet just to pick up the internet signal with the enhanced antennas from the mainland, and it's about 25 miles before we can pick it up in the Bahamas right now. But I've been looking into satellite, but so far we haven't needed just island hopping down to the Florida Keys. You're never out of cell range.
Oh, I've been to Key West a half a dozen times. It's if I could afford it, that was where I would winter. I love that place down there. Never had a bad time in Key West, I'll tell you that. So
I don't think there is one.
no, I don't think you
have a
go out of your way to have a bad time in Key West.
So there is one piece of equipment I haven't heard you mention, so I was just curious. Do you have a telescope on board?
A telescope? No, we have binoculars.
Well, okay.
But no telescope.
Because I would imagine when you get out away from land and it's night, the stars must be phenomenal. So.
You know what? I'm writing that one down. Can't have enough toys here, I'm sure.
Well, a nice telescope though is going to set you back a couple of the G's if you want to do it really right, So Celestron or something like that. But so let's talk about that now. Obviously, I want to give you a chance to do your shameless plug here. So if somebody's interested in reaching out to you, why don't you give us an idea, a ballpark figure of what it would cost to do various things with you on Shared Adventure?
We do everything from 2-hour sunset cruises and up to 8-9 days in the Bahamas or in the Keys. Like I said, we're going for 3 weeks here. We're leaving the weekend of the 17th, 18th, and we'll be down there till the 7th of November. So It really depends. We are about 2/3 the cost of a comparable boat or other boats that you could take and charter. And the reason we do that is we don't, we're not looking for that, high-end customer that would come on and charter and, needs a little garnish on their food. And we want to operate just as if you had a friend on the boat. We invite a group of friends and we're taking off and going and having some fun. And so we don't feel the need to charge, at the rate that most of the other boats here in Fort Lauderdale or Miami are charging.
Well, and you mentioned
we want to make it affordable enough people can come back, and we get a lot of return visitors.
Yeah, you mentioned to me that if a single person or a couple just wanted to rent one of the cabins, you could do that, right?
That's right. Yeah, it depends. Now we're doing less of that right now because of COVID. Just trying to make sure that people stay safe. So if a group or family, we've taken families out. That's fun because the kids just love it. We just have all the toys. We throw out the big swim mat. Now we've only had 15 people on the swim mat, so that's. If you go to our website, sharedadventure.com, you can see the logo,
Yes.
right, wherever it is. There it is.
Yep.
It's sharedadventure.com, and you can see like photos of 15 people on the big swim mat. But people just love to go hang out, take a libation, jump into the water, hang out on the swim mat. As well as other things, take a little spin around on the wave runner. It's a 3-person wave runner, and they can actually get on the boogie board and get pulled like a skier behind that.
Yeah.
Lots of things to do, and the kids love it. Now, and we also have a lot older kids too. They're still kids at heart. They love it too.
Yes, absolutely. Even Matt and I, old guys like us, are still kids at heart. So the website address, if people want to find, I know I see you on Facebook, but I'm sure you have a website as well, right?
Yep. Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, and then it automatically loads up to our website at sharedadventure.com.
Okay. So I know you got your big Keys trip coming up here. What else is on the horizon that people might be interested in?
Actually, we've got a couple other charters coming up. We're still looking for Thanksgiving and holiday charters. So they have not, those dates are still available, but we really do a custom. So when people contact us, they can say, we want to do this, we want to stop here, want to see the Miami skyline, which is beautiful at night. Want to see that at night, so we'll stop at Virginia Key on the way down or on the way back. A lot of people want to stop in Key Largo because of, there's half a dozen cool things to do on shore, of course, and then obviously all the dive sites. And we do, Isle Morada is one of our favorite places with the hen and chickens. Spent Christmas Eve out there 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, and that was fun. Everybody took off, to go back in for Christmas Eve ceremonies and be with family, and Christmas morning. And about 11 o'clock, all the boats started heading back out. We were about a mile out in the Atlantic Ocean at that dive site. Just a gorgeous place to hang out.
All right. Sounds wonderful, especially that we're on the edge of winter up here. So I suppose we won't be seeing you up here anytime soon because it's getting colder, right?
So the one problem with sitting outside, like I am now in the back stern cockpit, is the boat across the dock is on the way, getting ready to go out. I don't know if you can hear that or not.
Yeah, I hear some noise. Yeah.
Yep. So they're just throwing lines on the boat and getting ready to take off. So.
All right, we got about a minute left. So once again, why don't you give, if somebody wants to reach out to Shared Adventure and reach out to you, maybe book something here because you mentioned you got some availabilities coming up. Where would they do that?
Yep. And then obviously, Mike, we want to tell people to go to internetadvisor.net.
Yes.
They can see you and I on all the previous podcasts there. and then keep track of what we're doing, as well as keep track of you here on your podcast as well.
All right. Well, thanks very much for being with us, Gary. I hope you can weather that really nice weather down there. We're thinking of you. I mean, I'll be thinking of you when you're doing that 3-week cruise up the Keys, or down the Keys, actually. So that would be wonderful. So
yeah,
thanks for being with us.
We'll enjoy the islands all the way down, all the way back.
All right, Gary Baker, once again, Gary Baker, sharedadventure.com and internetadvisor.net. We'll be back in just a minute with another segment of the M2Techcast. For right now, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
You're watching mitechnews.tv. See you, Gary.
Lawrence Technological University graduates earn a degree and a higher starting salary. In fact, when it comes to earning potential, the Brookings Institution ranks LTU fifth among U.S. colleges and universities.
All right. See you guys later.
Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
All right. Oh, there he is. I was waiting for Herman.
Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America.
All right, stand by. We're commercial. We'll be coming out here in about 30 seconds.
Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
What do you
I don't
get
wear
at
the
Lawrence
glasses because they
Technological
reflect off my halo.
Everything. Great labs and studios, supportive professors, plus a full campus life, NAIA athletics, and all the software you need to succeed. Be smart. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another segment of the M2Techcast. And we have as guest with us today, we have Chris Roebuck of Clicktivated, and a recent investor in the company that Lions fans will certainly recall, Mr. Herman Moore. Welcome to the show.
Oh, are we muted? Oh, there we go.
Not anymore. Thanks for having us.
All right, there we go. Okay, yeah. You know how to use video, right? Okay, good.
Yeah, no, my first Zoom. This is a weird experience for me.
Okay. All right. I was just kidding. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about what Clicktivated is. I had heard the name before, but until I got the press release and got a chance to read about it, I wasn't really sure what it was you guys did. So let's start off with that, Chris. Since you're the CEO, I understand the concept, but I want you to explain it to the audience.
Sure. Yeah. So at Clicktivated, we're all about blending the worlds between video and commerce. So we're finally giving viewers the unique ability to now directly click and shop any individual product inside video as they watch. So just imagine watching something online that a product really grabs your attention. You can now physically click on that product and all information gathers over to the right, and then ultimately will lead you out to that individual page for more information or to purchase directly through the video itself.
All right. And I don't think Herman needs much of an introduction, but we always assume everybody, since we do live on Facebook and we reach thousands of people there, they may or may not know our guests, but I'll let you talk a little bit about your stupendous career with the Detroit Lions.
No, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure first that you guys can hear me.
You just barely hear you. If you can boost your gain.
Yeah, Herman, we can hardly hear you, unfortunately.
Well, I was trying and see if I could get that better for you there.
Yeah, that's good.
That's better. Yeah, go ahead.
Nope, I appreciate it. I had an opportunity to meet Chris, and post-career, it's given me an opportunity to start to look at other opportunities. There are a lot of people doing some special things here in the state of Michigan, but throughout the country, in this chaotic time, there's innovation everywhere. And having the opportunity to work with Chris and his team and being a part of understanding what they were doing with Clicktivated. I've been in the technology space and looking at platforms for, since 2008, when I started with predictive analytics and a lot of sports platforms. Having the opportunity now to work with such a young and growing company in a place, the e-commerce part of the world, but also just the shoppable videos. I thought was really, really cool because we know that's where a lot of things are turning. And so now post my NFL career, I look for really nice opportunities like this where I can make an impact.
So you've not only been impressed by the technology, you were, to use a catchphrase of the former owner of the New England Patriots, you were so impressed you bought part of the company anyway. So what prompted you to make this investment?
Well, there's one, first having the opportunity to speak with Chris, very bright, very brilliant young man, and just talking to him about all the steps. And first thing I looked at was to look at his business acumen and the fact that he'd gone through some ways in which not only to develop his technology, but a lot of things that get lost sometimes is how do you protect that technology, and also how do you create a barrier of entry for your competitors. And just knowing that he was ahead the curve there, I knew that this was a person who was very serious about the technology, very serious about what they had done. And also that he put his own time and his team's time, money, and effort into it as well. So you want to see that there's some skin in it, as we always like to say in the game. And then also I looked at how, if I came aboard, I could make an impact with this company, not just as an investor, but how can I also take the contacts as well as the industries in which I've impacted or I have connections with to be able to give it another a solid way in which to start to grow and go. And so that made it a good investment for me because I knew I didn't have to be passive with it.
So you've put your money in, and what are you going to, obviously you'll get equity, but I mean, what's the money going to be used for? Whoever wants to field that one, Chris?
Yeah, no, sure. I'm happy to field that. So, just to kind of continue what Herman was saying, Herman and I have formed a great relationship over the last year or so. We're super excited to have him on board. I think there's a lot of natural synergies in terms of our company and what he brings to the table from both a background standpoint and a network standpoint. And we've had a good time working together, and we've got a lot of really good stuff coming up that is will be coming out here in the market, not in the not too distant future, that we're all excited about. Now, in regards to the investment in terms of where that's going, without getting into any real key specifics, what it's helping us do is it's really helping us advance our technology in a couple places that have never happened before within this market. The one area that I will mention is we are just rolling out our V1 live streaming shoppable video technology. And we've become the first technology company on the planet that now enables the direct ability to click individual products inside of a live stream. So now part of this investment is going towards how do we continue to build out the back end for that, and how do we continue to scale out the abilities and the amount of platforms that we can help impact.
Now, let me ask you, is it just the live stream where your technology works, or does it work for VOD?
Our focus from the beginning really has been on the VOD side. So we're able to come in, we're able to take content and video that's already been produced, put our technology within that video, make it interactive or shoppable on the recorded side. That will continue to remain a big focus, but with the world changing, lots of different formats are starting to become more and more vital, and live streaming is absolutely one of them. Because when it comes to the brand and retail side of the universe, brands are looking for ways to communicate more effectively with their audience now, and live streaming is really that format that a lot of brands are using, both for inclusive experiences and exclusive experiences.
I don't want to sound too self-promoting, but I have some people working on developing my own video platform. It's going to be more news-oriented, but certainly can you work with other platforms, even ones that are proprietary, like the one we're building?
Yeah, our technology is always created with kind of scale and integration in mind. So yeah, we can absolutely work with any platform that allows us to integrate in. So we've been fortunate to have already integrated with a lot of really major platforms already to date.
And so go ahead, Matt.
I was just curious. I'm a little bit curious as to who the customer is for this. Is it the brand? Is it advertising agencies? Is it producers, production companies? Television producers? Is it the Netflixes of the world? Who would ultimately make the decision to include this technology in a live stream or a VOD?
Yeah, so right now, our focus is on the brands, the retailers, and then digital publishers are our three main verticals right now. So we've been fortunate enough to work with major retailers such as Target and Macy's and Kohl's, and big brands like Tommy Hilfiger, Under Armour, etc. So we're very fortunate in that regard, and where we see a really large opportunity, again, continuing to evolve in front of our eyes, is with the digital publishers. We've done work with the Yahoos of the world, some of the other Verizon properties, Condé Nast properties, the Time properties, and what that does is now gives them another tool to go out and create a more powerful and valuable tool for their brands and their advertisers. So when they're producing this custom content, I should say, now we're able to come in, activate those videos, and their brands are now able to get that direct shoppability interactivity with the client or with the consumer. And that's really what it's all about, is how do we make it extremely simple for a consumer to see a product in a video and be able to access that information to buy it directly on the spot. And as we're all living through right now, that speed and simplicity to go from point A to B, which is seeing something and then ultimately buying it, is really the new name of the game when it comes to e-com. And then combining video in with it as well, with the explosion of screen time that's going on in consumers' lives. It seems simple, but it's really happening in front of us. And it's the next 6 to 18 months are going to be fascinating in terms of how this continues to take off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound bad, but I mean, the pandemic has actually been wonderful for streaming video and on-demand video, VOD. So that's the one good side of the pandemic. And certainly it's, I mean, look at Zoom. I mean, they're worth the owner is worth $4 billion more than he was before the pandemic. So that's really, I think it was slowly coming on before, but I think this really propelled it into the future. And the other thing that's happening, I'm seeing, is so many companies that didn't really want to let their people work remotely now are seeing that, well, I guess we can really pull this off. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
In terms of just live streaming as a whole?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the consumption habits have changed, formats have changed. I mean, it's not really about changing. It's more about how they've evolved in terms of how they're used. But yeah, I mean, we're seeing a massive explosion in terms of live streaming formats and just video as a whole. And the way we talked about it was, video was already massive coming into this, but it's really accelerated to points that it's never been from a digital standpoint. E-com was the same thing. I mean, e-commerce was already gigantic coming into this, but now consumers are hesitant to go to the stores. The store experience is not the same, and major brands and retailers are pushing as many of their consumers e-com and online so they can still facilitate those transactions and still sell their products and goods. But then the middle part is the thing that's missing, is that in-store experience, or really that digital experience. And now these brands, retailers, and everybody's turning to video, because video tells a better story. It's more inspirational, and you can see all these different things live and in action. And we're just coming in, we're helping solve that growing challenge, which is connecting you, the consumer, to those products and helping brands effectively sell and monetize more products.
And Herman, you have the golden Rolodex. So how do you see this playing in with a lot of the companies and the network that you have already developed?
Well, first and foremost, I look at it in a couple ways. There's several industries and verticals that my company internally already participates in. So when I got involved with Clicktivated, I looked at which ways would I first utilize it, because then that gives me an opportunity not only to become intimate with the product and understanding it, but also giving it other areas in which we can do test markets or figure out how it could be utilized. And that way it gives us statistics, it gives us data that we can then turn and say, these are case studies in which this has been utilized and it's been used in a very effective way. I have a staffing firm. There's ways in which I can see how that could be utilized from an education and a teaching tool as part of it, not just so much in e-commerce. We do a lot with educational systems and education systems and developing platforms for that. So there's this remote and distant and blended learning that I think this has an application for. And we also build a lot of SaaS programs and platforms. By doing that, it allows us as a company to be able to use and blend some of these technologies and basically combine some of these technologies, just as you mentioned earlier, Mike, that may be utilized with another platform. So that's the other thing. It's a very flexible application and a very flexible technology. But also when you use any new technology, it's all about monetization. It's all about what is the upside for the end user, whether it be a company or a customer. And then also, what are each parties gaining that's going to make things either more efficient, more profitable, or less costly, or you're streamlining something. So we're solving solutions. We're taking video from being a very passive thing to where it's more engaging. But then it also allows us, just like with any new technology, I think there's a lot of things that's going to evolve out of this. once it's in the hands of consumers, it's in the hands of businesses, ad agencies or marketing companies, branding companies. We do have a lot of different places in which we think it has great application. So we will be experimenting to a certain degree, but at the same time rolling out in a very strong way areas where we know it has great opportunity.
All right. Wonderful. Well, we're out of time in this segment. So Chris or Herman, why don't you give the website address or how folks can get further information about what you guys are doing? And by the way, you guys are based in the Detroit area, aren't you?
Yeah. Yep.
Are you right in Detroit or are you outside of Detroit?
Well, we do have an office downtown, but we've been working remote for
of course,
quite some time at this point. So
right,
Yeah.
All right, so cool. So how do people reach out to you?
Yeah, so if anybody would like to learn more, feel free to visit our website. We're just clicktivated.com. And if you want to reach out and explore opportunities from a sales standpoint or from an investment standpoint, feel free to reach out to me direct, chris@clicktivated.com, and happy to connect.
All right, sounds great. Take us out, Matt.
Okay. Thanks for being with us today. Herman Moore of Team 84 and Chris Roebuck of Clicktivated. And we'll be back in just a minute with another segment of the M2Techcast. For right now, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And you're watching MITechnews.tv.
Lawrence
Thanks, guys. We'll get you the video post
really
show
nice
here in a couple days.
When it comes to earning potential,
Appreciate it.
Brookings
Sounds
Institution
great.
ranks LTU
All right, thanks a
among
lot.
U.S. colleges
Thank
and
you, Matt.
universities.
Good luck.
Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Right.
Salaries of Lawrence.
Hey guys, I was getting ready to call you. I thought I had the wrong number.
Plan a campus visit.
No, we're just running a little late.
Faculty and coaches.
How's everything going?
Why wait? Find
Good.
out more at
Good.
LTU.edu.
As a Lawrence Technological University graduate, you're not only
Anything you guys want to talk about today?
Oh, yeah, your slides. Yeah.
When it comes to graduate salary,
Well, I don't know, Fred. The news has been so slow lately. I mean, geez, what are we going to talk about?
possible is everything.
It seems like half the White House has it now. I mean,
Yes.
my goodness.
The Trump's drive-by yesterday I found particularly interesting.
Yes.
Particularly tone deaf. Yes, right. I can believe this.
Of the Regal carriage wave, I thought that was a.
Yes. Oh, we're back.
Oh.
Hey. As Matt cleans off the lens. Hi, it's Matt
Yes.
Roush.
I thought it was a little blurry there, but I just thought it was a bad camera. So, and it's
Yeah,
Mike
no.
Brennan with a clean camera. So we have calling in once again, we have our infectious disease expert, Fred Brown, and he was off last
Yes,
week.
our very own Dr. Doom. Yes,
Yes.
welcome, sir.
He was off last week with some family things he had to deal with, but he's back. So he has lots of things to catch up on. A great slideshow he sent to us earlier. Let's start off with I'm not sure it was the easy one, but certainly our president has, and appears that just about everybody that came in contact with him about a week ago has now come down with COVID. So I guess it's not a hoax, huh?
Well, we've gone. My guess is that he and the First Lady were probably involved in a super spreader event. And it probably occurred, you see all these pictures outside the Rose Garden. It actually probably occurred inside, but prior there was there's an indoor meeting of the people. And apparently, from the data we can see, many of those people weren't tested, even though they were supposed to have been. And that's disappointing because obviously we have the first generation, which kind of takes about 10 days. Then we have a second generation of disease that we can expect in about 20 days. And that'll be, of course, to the power, right? Because if you have 10 people who are infected in the first round, they each will infect 2.5 to 3 people. So then you have probably 1,000 people affected. And on the third time around, it'll be about 10,000 people that could be infected.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the way it works, sadly.
Yes, I know.
At least impacted. They were not necessarily catching the disease, but at least impacted by having the opportunity to catch the disease.
And we don't really know what his condition is. I've been watching all the news reports, and it's like all over the board. Everybody has something different to say. So I don't know what the real situation is, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, only his doctors know. That's probably appropriate. I don't think. unless he's incapacitated, which he doesn't seem to be. I don't think it's really appropriate that we get into all of his personal medical history necessarily. But we do have a list of all the drugs he's on, which we'll go through a little bit later. And that is interesting, because if you have people who who are in the hospital and you want to give them some of the better drugs that are out there, I think his list is a pretty good one to start with. At least talk to your doctor about it. There's some additional ones you can add depending on your own situations, but at least it's a darn good list to start with. I think one of the reasons, one of the complaints that we've been having is that people have not been traced. So there's no kind of tracking and tracing like we should be doing, and that is because probably up to, as I said, every time we're squaring that number, just an awful lot of people can get infected by a single incident, and they probably don't want to be known for potentially spread up to 10,000 people. I wouldn't want it to be either. But that's the way this virus works, Andy. If you're involved with a single super spreader event, it can really move fast through a community.
Okay, so
Well,
I guess
what I heard is, and then tell me if this is accurate to what you've heard, is that Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court had it over the summer, and I heard that this morning, and and was considered to be recovered. But apparently somebody else in the entourage was not. Somebody else was still shedding virus. So.
Yeah, there were probably at least 3 or 4 people. Given that even if they had done tests, there probably would have been at least 3 or 4 people in that group, given our infectivity rate among high-level executives and politicians. There should have been at least 3 to 4 people with the infection. She probably actually had antibodies and was relatively safe.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. I didn't know that she had the disease over the summer. I'm glad she recovered from it. It'll be interesting to see, how we know whether there's a significant portion of the Senate that's affected.
Yeah, that'll to be determined. So let's take a look at those slides.
Oh yes, I'd be happy to. Speaking of politics, I thought I'd go a little bit local this time. Talk a little bit about Michigan, see how we're doing. One of the things that happened. Of course, over on October 2nd, was the Supreme Court ruled that what Gretchen Whitmer's been doing is unconstitutional. That she's been continued enforcing her executive orders even after April 30th, which is as far as the legislature allowed her to go. She's been kind of continuing to enforce new orders because she, I think, felt that she needed to, based on the data that was presented to her by experts. In full disclosure, I am not consulting with the state of Michigan. I consult with 17 other states and 6 countries, but I don't consult the state of Michigan, although I live here, so I'm sort of interested in, in what the impact.
Well, you know what they say: a prophet is never honored in his own hometown, right? So that's.
Well, she's getting excellent advice. I put her response, as far as the health response, certainly among the top 10 states in the country. I mean, we've done a very good job. Part of it is we're 2 peninsulas, and that makes it easier, as Korea points out. But I think overall she's been responding, as well as can be expected. I work with a lot of states that aren't responding as well, and I've been sort of jealous of the way Michigan's doing. So I'll show you sort of what I was interested in is if so on the first slide, I just said, here are the implications. Basically, she has had about 200 COVID regulations passed under the Emergency Powers Act of 1945. And by ruling that this action is illegal, about 160 of these regulations that she has passed have been ruled unconstitutional. I guess that takes up the higher court will execute this back down to the lower courts, who will implement, and that takes about 21 days from the point of the ruling. That would be October 23rd, 25th kind of time frame. And at that point, if the court moves forward with that, which they're expected to, of course, following the Supreme Court's ruling, then that would be when unconstitutionality takes effect. But immediately, the AG, the Attorney General, is going to stop enforcing the rules. Not that these rules were that onerous to begin with. I mean, none of them required jail time. They were all misdemeanors. There were some fines. Most of them are pretty hard to enforce, frankly. I don't think they've been terribly enforced, from what I can tell. I do consult with the state of Hawaii, and there we had several people getting $10,000 fines for disobeying the rules. So that sort of that sort of sends you at attention when you realize you got to have to pay $10,000. But here we don't tend to do that as much, and Hawaii is sort of an outlier because they are so concerned about their island getting taken over. In Germany, Switzerland, I'm a citizen in Switzerland. It can be $50,000 if you're caught.
50,000.
Oh
wow.
yeah. Oh yeah. Easy. Especially if you do it once, twice, 3 times. Yeah.
Well, that's where all the little bald guys are with the money. So
and trust me, they make sure you pay it.
Yeah.
You will have you'll have police on your door at that evening. Absolutely. So that just gives you a sense of people the countries who are really taking this very seriously, and people who are passing laws but don't really tend to enforce them that much, which is more of the where we are in the United States. The HHS does have, Health and Human Services does have authority in each of the different areas of the country. They've got in the state we've got 8 regions, and the HHS can go ahead and limit crowd size in the event of epidemics. But unfortunately, the HHS, if you think about it, really doesn't have any police force or charging, or they can't really charge anybody if they break the rules that they've passed. So it's probably not going to be terribly effective. And of course, the governor can continue to work with the House and Senate to enact COVID legislation in the future, and I certainly hope they do. But so far they seem to have been pretty deadlocked. So this is my interpretation. I have talked to a couple of lawyers. The ruling is 107 pages long. I have looked at some of the summaries, the cheat sheets, and read some articles. But I'm not a lawyer, so I don't think I've misinterpreted this. And of course I don't consult with the state, so I'm not involved directly in all the decision making. But this is what I believe is the case, and what everyone has reported to be the case. So there are 5 big areas that we really tried to enforce. The first one was the mask mandate, and you can read the actual law. That says that you've got to maintain your 6 feet of distance. You have to be able to. You can't just tell all your customers you can go ahead and not wear masks because everyone's allergic to masks. You have to actually enforce the mask if you've got customers who are in public places, so that's the rule, and it seems pretty reasonable. It doesn't seem to be out of the ordinary. It's very aligned with what is recommended. Although, I guess people are unhappy about having to wear masks. But if you can't maintain distance and you're pretty close to people, you should probably be wearing them. You should definitely be wearing a mask. There's no doubt about that. Restaurants at 50% capacity. This says that you have to. There are about 20 rules you have to obey. They reopened in June. As you know, but they said 50% normal seating, and all groups must be separated by 6 feet or more. And this is standard. If you can't separate more than 6 feet, the aerosols are going to come and get you, especially if you're sitting there for 45 minutes waiting for your dinner. So this makes a lot of sense in my estimation as a health professional. And you're supposed to wear masks at all times. So if you go to the bathroom, get up, take a look around, you're supposed to wear a mask so you're not coughing on people as you walk by them and infecting their food, which makes sense. Of course, if an employee comes down with COVID, you also want to close down the restaurant because you don't want people, serving food, with having COVID. And of course, you don't want to, go to buffets and drink stations and things like that. So those are all shut down by that order. And so that's now no longer constitutional. Gathering limits. You can indoor venues, 20 people per 1,000 square feet, as long as people wear masks. This is again about the 6-foot rule. Outdoor venues, 30 people per 1,000 square feet, or 30% seating capacity. So that gives you a sense of where they are, and this is pretty standard. Almost all states have this in place as at least a recommendation, if not a law. Bar closures. They shut down all bars that where they had at least 70% of their sales coming from alcohol. But the problem is we don't really track this at all. So we really couldn't tell who's a bar, who's not a bar. And it wasn't enforced. So we didn't really have an enforcement there. And you probably don't want to, go to bars who aren't enforcing this and having a lot to drink, because you start to lower your, you start to become more friendly and then start lowering your guards. And that adds a lot of challenges, especially if there's a lot of loud music playing and you got to shout over the stereo system. So that probably that also makes a lot of sense to me. Unfortunately, it's now unconstitutional according to the Supreme Court. And work or office space. So if you go to work, before you were protected because people in Michigan who could work remotely are required to keep working remotely. That makes a lot of sense. And then they also laid out requirements for office space, including distancing and 6-foot distancing and signs about personal hygiene around reminding people, again, to disinfect high-touch surfaces. All this to me makes a lot of sense. It's all very much aligned with every other state that I've worked with. And in fact, every state that I've worked with has made this a law, not as far as an emergency order, but it just has become law. And Michigan has used the emergency order rather than the law. But this is very typical for most states, and most states, I think this is also responsible for most citizens to follow. So what happens now? These are unconstitutional. Mask mandate, restaurant restrictions and capacity, gathering limits no more, bar closures no more, working office space, you have to go to work if your boss tells you, or they can fire you. So what happens? Well, we've done some analysis, and there is the IHME, which is out of University of Washington, is the model that actually the White House follows, is the model that President Trump follows, and they actually calculated what'll happen if we continue with our current law or we allow easing. And the continuation of the current law is in the brown, and you can see that we're anticipating that, and this is very, I have my own model, but this is within 10% of my modeling. So it's very, and it's pretty conservative, frankly. It could be a lot worse than this. It probably won't be better than this. And we've got, you can see that basically, if you ease, we think we're going to have 37,658 on average within our confidence interval, extra cases. And if you think about how much each case costs, Avalier is probably the leading consultant in this space. And they're saying it costs $23,489 per patient in the United States. Michigan's a little bit more expensive than average. It's probably around $26,000. I just use their average to be conservative. Some people are estimating that these costs are actually closer to $70,000, especially if you're uninsured, but $23,000 is an average. Yeah, it costs a lot of money to go to the hospital. You be there a couple of days, just sitting there. It's expensive. And then, of course, you know that about a third of patients have long haul effects. And what I did is I said, well, if you look at the long haul effects, these are effects that you cannot cure. Permanent scarring of the lungs, tachycardia, and permanent inflammation of the heart, central nervous problems. Heart and central nervous problems are a lot more expensive. I use the COPD cost per year of $5,200. If you use heart, lungs, it's probably close to 7 times that. So it'll probably cost you between $25,000 and $50,000 a year. But let's just use $5,000 a year times 12,427 patients is $1.3 billion of cost that this is going to cost us as a result and that just in the next 2 months. And you can see that this curve keeps rising, right? I mean, it's not stopping. There's nothing to stop it at this point, right? We don't have mask wearing. We don't have we don't have gathering limits. We don't have bar limits. We don't have employer limits. So without the virus, nature is just going to keep going. So this graph shows upward trend. That's not going to curve down. The bell curve isn't automatic. It's something they have to work on. So that's going to keep going. And
then when you throw in the seasonal flu, right?
Oh, you throw in the seasonal flu, another 200,000 patients, and all of a sudden you're getting pretty close to overwhelming some of our hospitals. And that causes death to go up. Well, I didn't even throw that in, by the way, Mike, just so you're aware. Here's what our death rate looks like. And you can see that basically the Supreme Court ruling that just occurred is going to cost us about 3 times the deaths. Most of these people will be in their 70s and 80s, but there'll be a good number of them who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, a good number. Probably 10, 15, 20%. So you can see that we're really going to pay a lot for this, for our health, unfortunately. Now, it may have been the right thing to do legally. The first, there were 2 big things that were struck down. The first was the 1976 law that was unanimous, but the other law was interesting. It was struck down by Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats voted 3 against voting it down, and the Republicans voted it for voting it down. So somehow it looks like politics really got into this decision. And if you're going to be political about your decision, then you should be held accountable for the full costs. And so, next time you see a Supreme Court judge, you ask them why it's going to cost us 250 people a day dying in order to preserve the law that they felt that politically they had to support. It's disappointing.
Well, since we're choosing the Supreme Court a month from now, November 3rd, I guess these are relevant questions to ask, right?
Absolutely. I think it's a fair thing to ask them about and hold them accountable to. So when you add all the deaths up, it's going to be about 2,000 extra deaths. And if you do the math, we you know, that's about 20.4. That's just the standard calculation that that the government uses for the worth of a person. Then using that number is about $20.4 billion.
Wow.
Of cost that this is going to cost us. And that's just the next 2 months. We're not talking about a year from now. We're talking about the next 2 months. You know, this is a very, very expensive decision that was made with, you know, without much consideration, I think, about health consequences.
What do you think the likelihood is that even though some of these rules have been struck down, that the business establishments or the patrons may still, you know, do the things they're supposed to do? Is that likely or not?
I think it'll be mixed. I think there are a few that really want to open up, you know, and they've been pushing hard to open up. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a push, you know, to have brought this forward at the Senate and House of Representative level.
Well, yeah, and Dr. Fauci was just quoted as saying that we're going to have to hunker down this fall and winter. I feel like I've been hunkering since March. You know, I haven't been in a restaurant or a bar since March. I only go grocery shopping when I need to. It's not like, you know.
Yeah.
And if I'm in a place where people aren't wearing masks, I'm right out the door. I'm out.
Smart. I think that's probably smart, just because this thing is so contagious. And you know, I was up north last week, and I went to these different groups, and I went to all these different shops, and I went shopping with my wife. She wanted to buy some new things, and each of them said that each one of them had been sort of, you know, people had come in without their masks, and they really didn't know what to do about it, and they didn't really want to be kind of unsupportive of potential customers, so they didn't really say anything. But I think every business now, you know, had that challenge with the law on their side. Now they have this challenge without the law on their side, and of course they're not allowed to say anything. So I think that's disappointing, because I think you know, you want to encourage your laws to encourage good citizenship. And in this case, we need to hunker down for probably another year. I hate to say it, but that's about how long it's going to take for a good vaccine to come through.
I think Mike's hiding behind his microphone there.
Yes.
Well, you know, so the question has been how difficult you know, we've got all this, seems to be a lot of political fervor about these executive orders. And so I wanted to kind of compare, and in fact, this is actually in the model. It kind of compares, you know, what we've been doing. And they said in Michigan, we're about 35% compliant with mask use. So if you go around and you figure every chance you get to wear a mask versus how much you really wear a mask, is about 35% of the time. And I have to admit, I'm probably at that level. You know, I'm you know, when I think about all the chances I should have been wearing a mask, and didn't, I say probably a third of the time I've been doing it right, and about 2/3 of the time, you know, I'll be out there, and I won't wear one of them. I try to do better than that, but that's about saying, about on average, you know, based on observation, and they do this out of the University of Maryland, Michigan's about 35%. That's about the same around the country, about 35%. Now, if you were in Taiwan, you'd be a real outlier, because in Taiwan, where they really do wear masks effectively, they're at 95%. So I mean, they're wearing masks to bed. I'm joking. Every time you see someone outside, you will almost always see someone wearing a mask, and that's because they actually enforce this pretty carefully. So that sort of gives you a sense of where, you know, how to compare yourself with how really invasive the executive orders have been. And I don't think they've been that invasive, you know, if you really think back on it, compared to how many lives they've saved and how much good they've probably done. But you know, for some people, it's been a challenge, and for some business, it's been a challenge. Now, the other big question is about mobility, and this is coming out of the mobility matrix on your phone, and people are tracking how much mobility there is. And you can see that back in April, we were way down. We were minus 65%, 68% mobility rating, and right now we're at about 10%. So, you know, in other words, what you're doing in 2019 compared to what you're doing this year at this time, the difference is about 10%. So we're not really that impacted by these executive orders, even though they seem to be getting a lot of attraction and having a lot of political fallout. And in fact, if we were to say, let's go ahead and try to get to the same health effect that these 5 mandates create, how much mobility would I have to stop if I stop wearing masks, doing all these other things that now are being required? And the answer is, you'd have to stop moving around 63%. You'd have to be down at where you were in April to get to the same public health effect as this sudden Supreme Court mandate says, let's limit all these rules. If you really want to get down to the same health effect, you've got to stop moving around by 60%. That is a big imposition in my view, and allow a lot of people who don't want to, or some people not to do all these things that I think are important, and to impose then me having to stop moving around 63% in order to maintain the same level of health effectiveness. That to me is a much bigger imposition on me than I was having on you, asking you to wear a mask and not having gatherings of more than 20 people on 1,000 square feet. So I think the Supreme Court got this really wrong. If I had to say in terms of impact of the health, impact on the law, and our ability to act and be free, I think the Supreme Court got this wrong. I really do. So what's the real cost? Let's take a look. If you add it all up, I only talked about 2 months, right? Let's just pretend that for that upward curve just stops all of a sudden in December. It goes flat. That's not going to really happen, but that's all the numbers I could work with IHME. My own numbers I've got, but I didn't want to affect that. So let's just hold IHME numbers steady at January 1st levels all the way through. That's not going to happen. It's going to go way up and way down. But let's just hold it steady. If we do that, then over the course of the year, the GDP impact, just over the next 12 months until we get a vaccine, if we're lucky, will be $2.7 billion.
Wow.
That's direct out-of-pocket costs. So you can ask the Supreme Court justices, was it worth $2.7 billion to impose this thing for the next 12 months that really impacts our ability to move around and to stay healthy? So the best scenario of the 1 year, that's for the GDP impact for the next 2 months. So we have to multiply that by 6 for the full year, $16.2 billion. If you close every restaurant in the state, every restaurant, didn't allow them to open at all, that would cost $17.9 billion. You could have paid every restaurant pretty much to stay completely closed for the whole year and broken even on this whole deal. And that's a shame. Or certainly every fitness club, every restaurant, you could have shut them down and said, here's your money. Go ahead, here's your money. Because that's as much as it's going to cost us anyway for the Supreme Court to let it go through. Wow. And furthermore, the other problem is that the long haul effects and the excess deaths are going to be with us for 20 years. And if you do that math, that's about 3.5% of our economy in the state of Michigan every year for the next 20 years.
Wow.
We're at a deficit. So you have to ask them, what is it worth it? Is it really worth it to impose on all of our freedoms, the changing of the law? And then the biggest issue, I think, is the fact that Michigan is going to be unable to respond quickly. Just as we're going into the fall season, just as we're going into the flu season, just as COVID is going to ramp up at speed in the cold. So this is exactly the wrong time to have this opinion. It's going to really impact us badly, and we won't be able to control outbreaks across the state. We'll have little HHS kind of interventions in Grand Rapids and Detroit, and everyone will be moving around the state and infecting each other. And it just comes back to the fact that we've got an exponential growth epidemic, an exponential growth virus, and all we can do is respond linearly, right? It takes us time, it takes us, and the governors is the only one in this position, and I think President Trump knew that when they said the governors have to respond. Here, you guys have to do this, and it's unfortunate that the Supreme Court in Michigan has been the only state in the country to override the government's ability to have executive orders, if I understand it right. And that really is going to hurt us as a state. Right now, we're doing better than most states, and in the future, we'll be doing a lot worse than most states. And it'll take about in the November timeframe to start to feel this, but we will definitely feel this. And as far as individual impact, if this happens and the Supreme Court decides in November, it won't come out until June, that the ACA is also unconstitutional, then if you're not insured, you can expect to pay about $73,000 for your hospital stay for COVID on average, not the $23,000 that Avalier pointed out to, and that were Medicare and negotiated insurance rates. It'll be $73,000 per person in the uninsured space. And if you got long haul, it'll probably be considered a pre-existing condition, and you can expect to pay about $20,000 a year out of pocket for your COPD problems.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut you off at that. We got a hard
All right.
stop at 3 because Dave has another show he has to produce.
I understand.
What do you want to leave folks with here in the last 30 seconds? This is pretty scary.
It is. I wanted to say the good news is we have a better sense of what's going on with what to take. This is what President Trump is taking, and you should, if you're in the hospital, if you have family members who are in the hospital, talk to your doctors about this course of treatments and see if you can improve the outcomes for your own family members.
All right, we're going to leave it at that. Maybe we can get we'll take those slides and we'll put them up online so people can read that then.
I think it's valuable. I think when you go out and vote this year and hold these people accountable for what you think is right.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks very much, Fred Brown. A great show today. Matt, take us out.
All right. Well, you've been watching the M2Techcast, mitechnews.tv. We'll be back again next Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. For right now, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And you've been watching the M2Techcast. Take care, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Fred.
What do you guys think?
Scary.
I think it's cocktail hour, like right now.
I think this is perfect for Dave to have on his show.
Well, I'm really upset about it. I have to admit, this state should not have done this. And
yeah, and me usually voting for Democrats, I was like, what?
You have to cut us off, Dave.
I do unfortunately have to run. Fred, I did shoot you a note and ask if you were available tonight at 9 to hop in and talk through this.
I think so. I'd be happy to. Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. I'll shoot you an invite.
Beautiful.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right,
talk to you later.
Care, guys.